Hey players, I've been thinking about the Pathfinder 2nd Edition exploration activities this week. The book describes it as when you want to do something other than simply travel, you describe what you are attempting to do. You don't have to go into deep detail, saying using my dagger, I nudge the door so I can check for devious traps. Instead, you can just say, I'm searching the area for hazards. That's enough. We then pick an activity and we go from there. The rhythm is the GM describes the situation, the players pick an activity, the activity resolves, the players roleplay until they are ready to pick a new activity. A group of players enters a room. The GM says, in this room you can see a bed, a desk, and a drawer, and two exits. Player 1 decides to search the room, checking for traps, hazards, and secret doors. Player 2 searches the desk. Player 3 searches the drawer. Player 4 decides to scout the head. We resolve the things. There's 3 perception checks, and the scout goes his own way to see if there's anything interesting or dangerous in the next room. You find nothing, you find a book, you find a letter written in common. And scout in the next room, you see there's a room with 3 exits. The players who found the things can then talk about it. The scout can decide to go along scouting further, or come back and report what's in the next room. After talking for a bit, the players decide that they found this book that has a code in it. So a player can decipher writing as his activity to see if they can figure out what the code is about. The letter talks about a deity that the characters aren't familiar with. So they decide that a recall knowledge on this letter would be useful. The scout comes back and decides to aid the recall knowledge. And the last player decides to detect magic to see if they missed anything magical in the room. So they announce the new activities, and the round starts again. GM describes, players pick, resolve, roleplay. But the thing is, Pathfinder has a lot of activities. There's so much to keep track of that it's really easy to fall in the rhythm of picking an activity and sticking with it. But that's not what we're supposed to do. The rules facilitate roleplay. Pick a few activities that you think your character is good at and make sense for your character to do, and change the activity based on what's required. If no one ever searches, then nothing will ever be found. So I broke the activities down into 2 groups, but these 2 groups are just for visualization purposes. You can do any of these activities at any time once their requirements are met. They aren't specifically tied to only being done in a room or only being done while moving. It's just a way to think about it. Moving between the rooms, you can defend, hustle, avoid notice, scout, and follow the expert. Defend just allows you to raise your shield at the start of combat. Hustle just allows you to haul ass. Avoid notice allows you to use stealth at the beginning of combat. But of course, also avoid notice is stealth. It allows you to not be seen, moving past dangers without being noticed, or moving back to your group safely. Scout requires no check. It gives you a chance to move through a dungeon and see dangers before they happen, and reporting back. And it's not at the start of combat that you get the +1 to initiative. You found the hazard, you found the danger, the creature, the whatever. And now the group has a +1 to that because they know it exists. Follow the expert happens when we have to do multiple checks to do something. Climbing up a hill, swimming through a lake, or avoiding notice. We are following an expert so we can add our level and their proficiency to our rolls. You would never go through the dungeon always defending. It doesn't make sense, and you're not contributing anything by just defending or avoiding notice. It doesn't make sense for you to be the only character avoiding notice all the time. You would go into defend after identifying some danger. You are trapped in a room while zombies hit at the doors and the windows, climbing on the roof. Any moment they can break through. What do? I go into defend. I have my shield ready and my sword drawn. The scout identifies a group of enemies in the next room. I go into defend, and I move to the front of the party. If combat starts, I want to be the first thing that gets hit. That's how you use defend. It's not just I have my shield up and I'm walking through the whole of the dungeon. Avoid notice is quite similar. You wouldn't sneak through every room. You would sneak if you felt that there's a chance of danger. Hearing the voices outside, I choose avoid notice. I hide myself so that the party seems smaller. And if an attack were to happen, I have that element of surprise. There's a group of enemies, and beyond them is the exit. We're weak and we cannot defeat them. I avoid notice to stealth past them. Before that, you were probably scouting. Before that, you were probably searching. But you change into these activities. The second group is stuff to do when entering a room. We have detect magic and repeat spell, which is the easiest things to do. It's the most brain switch off thing you can choose, because detecting magic doesn't require a check. It's up to the GM to remember items, creatures, traps, and if they have the magical trait, which is why it's a fun and easy one to do. I apologize to my player who likes doing this, because I sometimes forget whether there are magical things inside of the aura. Thank you for being a chill player and not calling me out on it. Searching is you use your senses to find things. You hear enemies in the next room. You see a letter on the table that wasn't obvious before. You search the bed, turning it over, lifting the pillows, looking under the mattress to find things that aren't just laying around. You are looking for something. It's a seek action. Seek is the basic action that everyone can do. Search is just the exploration term for it. Once you find something, you can investigate it. I know that I've been doing investigate wrong, and this is part of why I'm doing this. You investigate things that you found using search. You wouldn't normally use investigate to travel through a dungeon looking for traps and looking for clues. You would have a clue already, and now you're going to recall knowledge on it to get more details. You find footprints in the dirt using your search. Now that you have these footprints, you can recall knowledge to identify the creature they belong to, or try and find a pattern in the way it's walking to give you a hint about how many there are. Investigate is the fancy word for recall knowledge. And the way we would probably use this is we search, we find, we investigate. Investigate will slow the party down because you won't be moving through the dungeon doing it. And we have things that allows us to do free searches, like the Pathfinder feat. Means that you have a chance of finding traps even if your main activity is not searching. Outside of the basic activities, there are the ones tied to skills. These things require that you're at least trained in the skill that they are tied to, and they are more situational than the broader activities. I group them into thinky stuff, survival stuff, and social stuff. Thinky stuff usually are tied to identifying magical items, alchemical items, learning spells, borrowing an arcane spell from another caster, repairing broken stuff, and deciphering writing. Decipher writing is the one that you would use to break a code or try and get through a language you don't normally read. Everything else is pretty self-explanatory, and they would happen naturally as you explore the dungeon. Under the survival stuff, we have track and cover tracks to either follow a creature or prevent a creature from following you. We have treat wounds, which is your out of combat healing. We have squeeze, which is a trained acrobatics to move through spaces that you normally don't fit through. This is another one where follow the expert would be useful. And the final one is a weird one for sense direction, to prevent you from getting lost. It's most useful for when we use the theater of the mind exploration, and we had a break between sessions, and you're not sure where you are. On a success, you can orientate and you can find your way out of this dungeon. On a critical success, you can tell the cardinal directions, and you're more accurate in navigating through. Sense direction isn't about getting through the dungeon, it's more about knowing where you are. And finally, we have the social stuff. Impersonate, you use deception and the disguise kit to hide your true identity. Gather information is you go out into a town or a settlement and you gather information. You might go to a library and use a different skill. But gather information, it broadly just means diplomacy, to talk to people. Coerce is you force someone to do what you want them to do. You bully them into it. And make an impression is you're trying to raise an attitude of a person or a group towards the party. Attitude is just another condition that creatures can have. Most creatures start indifferent towards you. Bad guys would be unfriendly or hostile, good guys would be friendly or helpful. Make an impression is a temporary increase in that attitude, where coerce will decrease it. And your impression will influence your gather information. It's harder to get information from indifferent things than it is from helpful things. All of these charisma-based things will suffer a penalty if you try to do it against multiple targets, and they will suffer a penalty if you try to talk to something that doesn't speak your language. But that's all the activities. That's all the exploration activities I could find. If you guys find this helpful, let me know. If you want a visual representation of something else, let me know. I'll be happy to make this. This is how I learn, and this is more about sharing with you guys than teaching you. But if you found this helpful, let me know. And I'll see you next session. Bye.